everyone.
A very good morning to everyone present here for this seminar on research. Before we start, I request the college anthem to be played for all of us.
गीत देश जगा सकूं, दे मुझे स्वर भारती दे, गीत देश जगा सकूं, दे विधाता ज्ञान वह भारत भविष्य बना सकूं, दे विधाता ज्ञान वह भारत भविष्य बना शिक्षा भारत भविष्य बना सकूं, भारत भविष्य बना सकूं।
Kavita, no sound.
Kavita ji, unmute yourself.
In these challenging times, when all of us are struggling with our daily routines and trying to strike a balance between intellectual pursuits and daily chores, the research cell of Nagindas Kanwala College has put together this webinar for the benefit of research scholars and interested students of research. We have tried our level best to put together major parts of research problems and issues faced regularly by students during the course of their dissertations for PG courses or MPhil courses or PhD courses. It is my pleasure to extend a warm welcome to everyone in this webinar. Those who have not been able to join us on Zoom are requested to join from the YouTube link that is live given to you along with the message. I hope you will all gain as much as you wanted from this seminar, and this will ensure that this venture of ours was worthy of your expectations. Leadership is all about taking others better as a result of their presence and making sure that impacts last even in their absence. Our college has one such leader in our principal who always says, "You go ahead, I am with you if you face problems." I now invite Dr. Mrs. Ancy Jose, our principal and leader, to please address the audience.
Thank you, Kavita. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, all the delegates and participants. At the outset, on behalf of the management and on my personal behalf, let me extend a warm welcome to all the participants for this wonderful topic on tools and techniques for our excellent doctoral research. As Kavita said, it's not only for doctoral research, it is definitely going to be very useful for the students who are planning for dissertations, planning for the MPhil program and PhD programs. As you're all aware, I think as per the UGC notification, probably from 2021, for getting into the faculty appointment, assistant professor's appointment, probably PhD is going to be a requirement. So it is the right time for the students as well as for the faculty who have not yet acquired PhD to think of doing research which enhances the knowledge of all of you, which in turn transfers into the students while we teach them. With these few words, let me extend a warm welcome to the resource persons. I think Dr. Kevin is here. Dr. Kevin, let me extend a warm welcome to you for this webinar, sir. Dr. Raju could not join. He will be joining on the day of his session. And we have the dynamic Dr. Moushumi Datta, Professor Dr. Moushumi Datta, to give you insights into the research program. My dear participants, we have excellent resource persons. Of course, you are going to give us the feedback, we know. From the feedback, we will come to know. But we have experienced these people, these resource persons in our earlier times when we used to conduct seminars in the college in the physical form. Now, COVID-19 has made us to be meeting each other in the virtual form. But that has made us to accept the changes, accept the challenges. We are passing through a very difficult time, no doubt about it. There is no sign of getting it plateaued. The curve is getting plateaued, no sign. Everybody is tensed and stressed, but definitely there is going to be a ray of light ahead of the tunnel. We have to be optimistic, and we have to be very, very positive about it. And then when we are positive and optimistic, definitely Almighty will listen to our prayers, and then Corona is going to go away from us. At least the scientists will be able to get us the vaccine and the medicine, and then we'll be having a time where we got rid of our Corona problems. Friends, I'm very happy to speak something about my institution. I'm so happy to say that, I've been associated with the institution from the day one of the college, that is from 1983. From then, we always thought about the development of the institution, and we have worked only about the growth trajectory of the institution. At present, we have 13 undergraduate programs and 4 postgraduate programs happening. And our college has become autonomous in the year 2016. And after becoming autonomous, we are working very hard again to fulfill the dreams of getting the autonomy for us. After that, we have started a lot of innovative programs. We have started BMS in sports management. We have started BCom honors in actuarial studies. We have become international BCom in association with the ACCA. We have fashion designing and MCom in accounts, masters in sports management, and postgraduate diploma in sports management. That is the 6 programs we have started after becoming autonomous. Even though it is COVID time, even though it is pandemic time, our wish to grow the institution has not stopped. Again, we are going to start from this academic year, that is June 2021. I mean, June is over, July is started. But this academic year, we are going to start with another few programs, that is bachelor's in interior design, bachelor's in tourism and travel management, bachelor's in integrative nutrition and dietetics, BMS in e-commerce, that is an association with the Logistics Skill Council. And then we have master's program also planned and going to be implemented, MSc in geoinformatics, postgraduate diploma in interior program management, postgraduate diploma in travel and tourism management, postgraduate diploma in nutrition and dietetics. My dear friends, all this was possible only because of the supportive management and ever pushing faculty, which is surrounded around me, always pushing me ahead to say that, ma'am, what is new, something we'll have to do every year. And that is how I get the courage and willingness to go ahead with starting of new programs. So with this small span of, 37 years of the college, we have been accredited 3 times, and 4th time we could have been over, but we got, because of the autonomy and because we got all the 3 times A grade, we got the extension from NAC. That's why, otherwise our 4th cycle also would have been over. We are going for a 4th cycle in next academic year, that is 2021. So during this COVID time, though we are in lockdown, our mind and thought process are not locked down. That is working in a better way and good way. That's how the idea of coming out with this webinar. I congratulate Dr. Varsha Ainabare, convener of this program, who is the adjunct professor, who is who is looking after my entire autonomy in our college. Dr. Varsha, and Dr. Kavita Kalkoti, organizing secretary for this program, for chalking out, this wonderful 5-day program. So I thank you for arranging this program. Kevin sir, once again, I extend you a warm welcome. And Dr. Moushumi Datta, I think you're going to take start the stage, for 5 days FDP program. So wish you all the best, and all the participants, give us the feedback. We want to improve. If at all we need, your feedback is the measuring scale for our program. So with these few words, once again, let me extend a warm welcome to all of you and wish you all the best. May God bless you all. Thank you. Over to you, Kavita.
Thank you, madam, for your inspirational words. Just when a caterpillar thinks the world will end, it becomes a butterfly. The moment you are ready to quit is usually the moment right before the miracle happens. The convener of this webinar, CA Dr. Varsha Ainapure, is one who follows her dreams and patiently and steadily convinces others of her ideas and converts the latent ideas and capabilities into beautiful butterflies. This webinar was possible because of her sheer patient perseverance. Before I invite her, I would like to inform the participants about certain things, that only those who attend all the 5 days of the webinar will be getting the certificates. That is, those who fill the feedback form on all days will get their certificates. Please make sure that you fill the form before you leave the meet. I now invite Dr. Varsha Ainapure ma'am to say a few words about the webinar and introduce the expert of this session.
Thank you, Kavita. Dear participants, we in Mumbai, yesterday we have spent the 100th day behind the doors, 100th day doing the chores, and 100th day where we could not go out or meet our colleagues. But never lose track of the fact that when the doors are closed, windows open. Did you know that during these last 3 months, Forbes added 29 new billionaires in its list? Levi's had a problem. Nobody was purchasing jeans because everybody was working from home, but the sales of the pajamas increased. So every challenge throws open the opportunities. We at Khandwala College are used to grabbing such opportunities. This is a time we felt research scholars have free time on hand. They can invest in their work and they can complete their doctoral thesis due to the lockdown. So we thought, let us arrange a webinar wherein we tell them everything about the doctoral research. As we have quoted in our brochure, we have top-notch people to talk to you. We have Dr. Kevin. If you are very new in your research work, if you are planning to collect the data, his session is going to help you because he is going to talk to you about how to develop a questionnaire. Dr. Kevin has Midas touch. Everything that he touches turns into gold. You are very lucky that you will be hearing him on the second day. Students, if you wanted to know which tool to apply once your data is collected, we have made arrangements for that too. We have an expert in this field who is going to talk to you about our programming. You will understand there are very few people who have authority over this R programming and who can make it simple so that everybody understands it. You are through with your data analysis once you attend these 2 sessions. We also have Dr. Moushumi Datta. She is going to talk to you about the literature review. If you have recently decided about starting with your research, the session on rationale and the literature review would tell you what sort of things you should read. If you have completed your research, her session on the last date is going to help you because once the work is done, you also want that it should be cited. What you should do so that more and more people notice your excellent work. That is what she is going to talk to you about in her last session. We also have made arrangements for her to speak on how to write your references And with this, you have a complete guide about how will you be. I wanted to share the screen. This webinar is going to this webinar is going to tell you everything about your doctoral research. I am very glad we could arrange it. This will not be out of place if I talk about our research cell in a few minutes. We offer PhD degrees in Faculty of Commerce and Faculty of Arts, as well as in Faculty of Science. We have with us PhD possible in Business Management, Banking and Finance under Faculty of Commerce, and in Geography under Faculty of Arts, as well as under Faculty of Science. These are the research guides associated with Khandwala Research Cell. Myself, Dr. Varsha Ainapure, and Dr. Bharat Pithadeya, we are recognized guides of Mumbai University for Business Management. Dr. Moushumi Datta and Dr. Prakash Dongre are recognized guides for Geography in Faculty of Arts as well as in Science. We have Principal Dr. Gopal Kalkoti and Dr. Kavita Kalkoti, who are guides associated with us for Banking and Finance. Our college is known for best practices as we are ISO certified and we concentrate on quality. Plagiarism check is not only a must for our research work of the faculty, but also for our work done by the masters as well as graduate students. We have made it compulsory for everyone to attach the report of the plagiarism checking. We encourage the faculty to take up research proposals, may that be minor proposal, may that be major research proposal. Encouragement, you will understand when you will know. We had so many major research proposals submitted and successfully completed. We had one postdoc as an international visiting scholar under Fulbright scheme. Our management too joins in encouraging the research. They have allotted some seed money to the fresh faculty members who find it difficult to get any research proposals accepted by the authorities. Even for research scholars, we have unique schemes. We make arrangements with an expert for 6 monthly presentations. We arrange for open defense when they are about to submit their thesis. And we have lots of digital databases available so that they can produce the quality research. Now, let me talk about today's resource person, Dr. Moushumi Datta. See her research work. She has completed 2 minor research projects, one of UGC, another of University of Mumbai. She has completed 2 major research projects, one by ICSSR and the second is ongoing project under Impress. She has completed 1 industry consultancy project and She has completed one interdisciplinary project which was sponsored by Maharashtra State Commission for Women. I think now you will understand how we are encouraged to accept research proposals. Not only this, she is excellent in her publications too. So far, she has published 85 research papers. Out of that, 43 are ISSN numbered and 42 are ISBN numbered. She has co-edited 8 books and has authored 1 reference book for geography and 9 textbooks for geography. Mind you, she does this after handling so many responsibilities. We at Khandwala says, Dr. Moushumi Datta has 48 hours in a day. She is coordinator of IQAC. She handles RUSA. She is coordinator of ISO. She handles 4 add-on courses that we run at college. She is a NAC coordinator. She handles MA Geography. She is coordinator for international initiatives. She is a director too at Incubation Center. And at University of Mumbai, she is a member of Board of Studies. About her qualifications, her basic qualification was MSc in Geography. She completed her PhD in the year 2008. That was PhD in Geography. But here we have a person who has completed second PhD, which was PhD in Management. So she is equally comfortable with geography. She can ask you questions on real estate prices or even stock exchange. She completed her MBA in the year 2010, and she has been an approved guide in geography recognized by University of Mumbai. Currently, she is a professor geography and she is a vice principal of our college, Nagindas Khandwala College. I am so glad that you are lucky to have a research person like her. I am sure you are going to enjoy all your sessions, and if even 10% of the participants are benefited by this webinar, if 10% lives are touched by attending this webinar, our purpose is served. We have tremendous response to our announcement of this webinar. 1,500 research scholars have registered for this webinar. So we had to make arrangements to show it live on YouTube, and we are also streaming it live on our college Facebook page. Be alert, be attentive, listen carefully, you are going to be benefited. And that was the only purpose behind attending or behind making arrangements for this webinar. I am glad you have registered for this. To take the benefit out of it is in your hands. Welcome to this webinar on research. Back to you, Kavita.
I now open the floor to Professor. I now open the floor to Professor Dr. Moushumi Datta without much delay. Moushumi ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Kavita. Good morning to all. At the outset, I would like to thank the management of the college, Principal Madam, Dr. Mrs. Ansi Jose, my colleague, Vice Principals, Professor Suchak and Dr. Mona Mehta, the research cell of our college, the convener of this webinar, Adjunct Professor Dr. C.A. Varsha Ainapure, and the organizing secretary, Dr. Kavita Kalkoti, for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts with you about today's topic on literature review and rationale of study. I'm highly honored to be presenting in front of everyone today. Thank you for that. I take a moment now to share my screen and start my thought process of today. Here we are today with literature review and rationale of study. So now we have to write a literature review. We dust off our books, settle in our chair, and get ready. And then, as we leap through on the pages of the books, we either put a thumbs up or a thumbs down. My literature review is ready, right? It is wrong. Literature review is definitely a collection of materials on the topic of the research, but it may not be as easy as I said now. Literature, in fact, can be anything. It can be a set of a government pamphlet from maybe British colonial rule in India, or it can be a scholarly scientific paper on probable treatment of coronavirus. Before we actually find out and realize how to write a literature review, it is very important for all of us to understand what exactly is a literature review. As given in the dictionary, a literature review is a survey of the scholarly sources that provides an overview of a particular topic. However, it is not, literature review cannot be defined in one simple sentence like this. It has some basic components. What are it? Literature review is generally done from various sources about which I will talk to it later in my presentation. So I can say it is a description of a publication or the sources. However, these descriptions of the sources has to have an organizational pattern, because in a literature review, we combine two very important aspects, that is summary and synthesis. Let us find out that minor thin line difference between a summary and a synthesis. A summary, as we all know, is a simple recap of important information of the source. But synthesis? Synthesis is nothing but reorganization or reshuffling of that information. Whatever information we collect for our so-called literature review cannot be just put one after the other. I need to put it very scientifically in a very scientific organizational plan, and that is called an literature review. How should the organizational pattern should be, I will be covering it in a later part of my talk. Literature review gives us the discussion of gaps in research. Gaps in research. The word gap is very, very important in literature review. Many of us generally omit the point gap. The main idea of doing a literature review is to find out this gap. How will you fulfill that gap, which will make you your study a very, very important one. We should not forget one thing, that one of the essential preliminary tasks of us to undertake a research study is to go through the existing literature so that we are acquainted with the available body of knowledge of our area of interest. Reviewing the literature can be very, very time consuming. As we all can see in a screen, we are jumping from one time to another. It is definitely time consuming. Not only that, it can be sometimes very daunting and frustrating as well. My research scholar friends will agree with me. But remember, my dear participants, it's very, very rewarding at the same time. At the end of a literature review, or rather at the end of a thesis, you realize how influential and cooperating your literature review was. So it is very, very rewarding in nature. Why it is rewarding in nature? Because literature review is an integral part of a research process. No research process is possible without a proven literature review, because it provides a valuable contribution in almost every operational step of a research. So when literature review is there with me all through the process of a research, how can I ignore literature review? We have to study, we have to understand the intricacies of a literature review to have a smooth process of our thesis. Literature review, as it is said, it is a continuous process. Literature review never ends. The day you really bind your thesis and submit, literature review goes on till there. I generally feel that literature review starts even before the first step. That is, when you are merely thinking about a research question that you may want to find answer, or through your research journey, literature review starts. In the initial stages of your research, it helps you to establish a theoretical route of your study. It helps you to clarify your ideas which you have in your mind. It helps to develop the research methodology. Later in the process, almost at the end of your research process, literature review serves to enhance and consolidate your own knowledge base and helps you to integrate your findings with the existing body of knowledge. Since an important responsibility in research is to compare the findings with the others, it is here that literature review plays an extremely important role. During the write-up of our thesis, it helps us to integrate the findings with the existing knowledge. That means your knowledge has been added to the other body of knowledges. So literature review becomes a very, very important part of the research. So what should be the aim of a literature review? Because these things are very important, then only we can really understand how to carry on with the literature review. So literature review helps us to provide an organized overview of the research on a specific topic. You just can't go around reading books and attending conferences in the topic which you're interested in, or you want to do a research. You have to do it in a very, very organized manner. Otherwise, we will be lost among all the sources. So literature review tells us that how to do it in an organized manner. It helps us to critically evaluate the published researches which we have. It helps us, as I said in my previous slide, summarize, synthesize, and analyze the arguments with other authors. It is not always that you will be thinking in the same line as the other authors. You can have differences of opinion also. So similarities and differences together makes a literature review. Literature review helps us to identify the gap in the body of research you are actually jumping into. And that is the best justification that why do we want to do a very good literature review. So we can say literature review gives us a very handy way by which we can start our research. It gives us a credit what others have said, so I can express my viewpoint on that. Literature review helps us to keep us up to date with the knowledge which is coming in your area. It helps us to have a very strong background. In one sentence, I can say, literature review is a stepping stone for our research. And this stepping stone has to be very, very strong. Let us make it strong. So we all know what is the purpose of literature review now. So the purpose of literature review is to provide a review of writings on a given topic in order to establish your own position in that field. Literature review helps us to study the prior topics about a research. In short, literature review shows the readers where the reviewer is entering into an academic conversation on a particular topic in the context of existing scholarship. So in simple terms, we can say literature review shows us the knowledge of the topic. Literature review helps us to keep it current. Literature review helps us to assess the major contribution made by different researchers in the same field, and at the same time gain credibility. So we can understand literature review is very, very important. But now we have not touched how to really do a literature review. Before I really go into how to do a literature review, let us understand, all of us here, that what is not a literature review. Once we realize what is not a literature review, we really understand what is a literature review. Actually, although this webinar is on doctoral thesis, I would like to add a simple point to this, is that the length and breadth of the literature review depends upon the length of the subject of the topic you are studying in. Majority of us are often filled up with the question that how many literature reviews we should actually do. So I'd just like to add here, although it's outside the purview of the webinar, that if we are writing a 10-page argumentative paper maybe, so we have a room for 5 or 6 sources to review. But when we are actually writing a thesis, there cannot be any number specification to it. It is all about judgment. If you feel you are able to fulfill your judgment, you are done with your literature review. That is why I said literature review is a continuous process. No ever can say my literature review is completed and I'm going for data collection. No, literature review goes on unless and until you really complete your thesis and you are ready for the solution. So as I come back to it, what is not a literature review? So we can understand properly what is a literature review. Literature review is just not a descriptive summary of the existing knowledge. No, but it is a critical analytical account. You become a real researcher when you think critically. Thinking critically, thinking analytically is a main characteristic of a researcher. So it is just not taking the sources from different books and journals and Google Scholar and writing them one after the other becomes a literature review. No, it is not a summary. It is a critical analytical account. At the same time, literature review is not the presentation of your own argument, but it is a combination. It is a synthesis of your argument as well as others. Literature review is just not organizing, as I said, the sources which you have collected, or it is not an annotated bibliography, but literature review really becomes strong when you are actually organizing your ideas with your arguments, that whether you really on the same path with the source which you have found or you do not agree to it. Literature review is something you could, suppose you're doing a research, it is not possible even by the top-notch researcher to read every piece of research which is related to that topic. Your research will never ever be over. But as an analytical, critical researcher, when you're writing a literature review, you should be very, very particular about selecting the writings of your relative work. In the later part of my talk today, I will also be analyzing how to select these sources. So we all know now that how important literature review is. We all know that what is the aim of the literature review, what is the purpose of the literature review, and what is not a literature review. Now let us find out what is a literature review and how do we go in a proper manner so that we can have a fantastic literature review at the end of our talk. Before I start writing a literature review, let us all understand the different types of literature review. There are actually many types of literature review, but here we have taken, I have taken up 4 important types of literature review. Number 1 is narrative, the most traditional literature review. So this narrative is also called a traditional approach of literature review. What is this narrative literature review? It critiques the literature and summarizes the body of the literature. So what is the main purpose of this? The main purpose is to analyze. See, I'm a researcher. I am analyzing and critically thinking and summarizing at the same time the body of the literature. This is achieved by presenting a comprehensive background of the literature, as well as highlighting new research streams, maybe identifying the gaps or recognizing the inconsistencies of the other authors in the same field. This type of literature review is actually very important because it helps in refining, it helps in focusing, it helps in shaping the research questions. And at the same time, this type of literature review, if done properly with care, will definitely help you to develop a theoretical and a conceptual framework. Let's come to the most popular type of literature review, that is systematic literature review. Why it is popular? Most of us are generally scared of literature review. Why? Because literature review has to be very, very rigorous. Remember, again and again, I'm saying it is a continuous process. So it has to be very, very rigorous. So when this type of literature review, that is systematic literature review, is very rigorous, at the same time, it is a well-defined approach when we compare it with other types of literature reviews. Systematic literature review is comprehensive and every detail is given here with a time frame within which the literature was selected. If you go through the literature reviews, most of the literature reviews, a year is present there because we are following a systematic type of literature review. This type of literature review focuses on specific empirical questions. Often it focuses on cause and effect form. For example, to what extent A contributes to B. So whenever we try to find answers to several questions, you see, I am becoming, or rather we are becoming researchers. We are thinking critically, we are thinking to analyze it. This systematic literature review can again be of 2 types. It can be a meta-analysis or it can be a meta-synthesis. I will just touch on these 2 different types because it is very essential, especially for the participants who are coming from a science background. When you conduct a meta-analysis literature review, you take findings from several studies on the same subject and you analyze it with the help of a standardized statistical procedure. In meta-analysis, patterns and relationships are detected and conclusions are drawn. We can say meta-analysis is associated with deductive research approach. What is that? Testing theory, we all know that. What is meta-synthesis type of systematic literature review? It is based on non-statistical techniques. It is mainly done for social sciences. This technique integrates, evaluates, interprets findings and different findings of different types of qualitative research studies. Meta-analysis literature review is generally conducted with the inductive type of research review. That means when you try to find out, make a new theory from the given data and so on. So we know what is narrative, the traditional one. We know the systematic, which is very rigorous. Systematic can again be of two types, meta-analysis and meta-synthesis. What is argumentative literature review? From the name itself, we can understand. It examines the literature selectively in order to support or to contrast an argument. It is deeply embedded assumptions, or sometimes it even solves a philosophical problem. The purpose is to develop a body of literature which is contrary in their viewpoint. You have the positive part as well as the negative part. But the main disadvantages of argumentative type of literature review is that it has the potential of bias, which is the major shortcoming. That is why maybe it is not a very popular type of literature review. What is integrative literature review? Here we review, we critique, we synthesize the secondary data about a research topic in an integrated way, and such that new frameworks come out. Now, if your research does not involve primary data collection and data analysis, then using integrative literature review is the only option left. So the main types: narrative, systematic, argumentative, and integrative. Narrative, the traditional one; systematic, the most rigorous and a very common one; argumentative is used less; and integrative when you do not have a primary survey. So we actually have an impression now what are the different types of literature review. We know the aim, we know the purpose, we know why should we do literature review. We are making our base stronger and stronger. Unless and until we have a strong base, really you can do a research, you can never do a research. A research will be just like a simple document. A research, you should actually fall in love with your research. And this process actually starts with literature review. So we know the types of literature review. Now let us find out how do we conduct a literature review. Proper systematic conduction of a literature review is very, very important. Otherwise, as I said, we will be lost nowhere and we will never be able to complete our research. Generally, there are 4 main steps of conducting a literature review. My research scholar friends, if after this discussion, if you really think and start writing a literature review based on these 4 points, I am sure you will come up with really innovative type of literature review. What are these 4 steps? Plan, research, organize, and then write. Let us understand each one of them one by one. First, I plan. So the first stage of everything is planning. In fact, Varsha madam and Kavita madam has been planning for this webinar for a long time. And that is why maybe so many respondents are, so many participants are here. So proper planning is needed for everything. And so is literature review. For literature review also, you need a plan. So the first step of everything is plan. Before you start, before starting to write, identify a research topic, all of us know. But when choosing a research topic, always try to be specific. For example, my research is on African politics. African politics, that is so generalized, it's so generic. Really, African politics, what? There can be so many components of African politics. So I can say that if I want to make my research topic specific, I can say to investigate the background of African politics, so on and so forth. So there should be something of African politics. You just can't start working. One fine morning you get up and you realize you need to do a research and pick up any topic and start researching. No, you should have a very, very specific topic. Take, for example, my specific topic is this circle, which is a cake. And I am trying to take out a small piece of that cake. So with a specific topic also, you cannot do a literature review. You have to take out that tasty slice of cake from a bigger one. And with that slice becomes my narrowing down of the topic. So I have a topic. A topic is not enough for research. From topic, I have a specific topic from where maybe I get the title of my research. My title of research is not enough to start a literature review. From that title of research, I take out a small piece and start doing literature review. So our narrowing down the topic is very important. Let us now learn how to narrow down this topic. Take, for example, I'm from psychology. So my general topic, I'm really interested to study about anxiety. Now, anxiety is a key word with coronavirus in. So what type? So what is my specific topic on anxiety? Maybe I want to study about social anxiety. That becomes my specific topic. I search books and journals and Google Scholar on social anxiety. There are so many, there are lakhs and lakhs of sources on that, documents on that. I'm totally lost and I leave my research. No, you find out a narrow topic from this specific topic. Maybe a narrow topic will be impact of social anxiety on learning of the students. So I got a narrow topic. From here, I got the keywords, social anxiety, learning, students. With these keywords, I will start finding out what are the research articles present in different books and different journals, and I start my literature review. I hope everyone will go with me as it's just like a funnel. From you are narrowing down your topic, and as I come to an end with the keywords, if you search, it becomes much more easier. It becomes interesting. At the same time, remember, researcher, analytical mind starts working. Another, we have anxiety. What type of anxiety? My specific topic I want to do, maybe separation anxiety. Separation anxiety. So what exactly of separation anxiety I want to work with? Maybe role of parenting style on childhood separation anxiety. So what are my keywords here? Parenting style, childhood separation. Start searching on these keywords. You will definitely get many articles and which will improvise your literature review. So similarly, I have brought a topic of pollution. In pollution, what pollution? Maybe acid rain. Acid rain where? Acid rain in the United States. That becomes my narrow topic. I keep on searching from my narrow topic. So friends, always my first thing I should remember, narrow down a topic. As I narrow down a topic, my search and research, which is research, my search and research becomes easier. It becomes interesting. You really want to jump in that plunge pool of research. So I have planned. My planning is over. I found out a topic. From the topic, I found out the specific topic. From the specific topic, I have also found out the narrow topic. Now my research will start from where to get the information. Books. No, now this searching is very important. Sometimes, let me add on a lighter note. We become very choosy for a selection of a spouse. Similarly, in a research, you should be very, very choosy, very, very selective when finding out the sources of your literature review. So there can be books, there can be journal articles, there can be newspaper articles, there can be historical records. Now, all this depends upon your subject where you're researching on. It can be commercial reports with statistical information. It can even be government reports with statistical information. It can be theses and dissertations. But just like if you can see my screen, Research Cat says no to Wikipedia. Please, participants, don't depend on Wikipedia at all. Remove it from your mind that there is something called something starts with W in my research. It is not at all an acceptable source. So, as a traditional researcher, whenever we think of literature review, we think of books. You know, books become inseparable for whatever study you do. From academics, books just can't go away. Whatever can be online, there are so many other things, but books are the books. Books are always become your real friends of an academician. So books has many advantages and disadvantages also. The main advantage of a book is that the materials which are published in a book is usually very important. They're authentic, they're of good quality. And because as Martin was a great researcher who has worked on different methodologies of research. So in 1985, he had put it beautifully. He said that books are something which is integrated with other research forms because it increases the coherent body of knowledge. So books are inseparable from my research. But there are many disadvantages of books also. Mainly is that sometimes the books are not up to date. You know, research is something where you have to be very, very up to date, because it takes a few years between completion of a book and publication of a book in a book form. So you have to be very, very careful on that. But there are many more resources also other than books, but books should be included in your literature review. Now, many a times the question comes from my research students, and I also think that what is the best way to search a book? You just cannot roam around, and it's not possible to buy the books as well. All books cannot be bought. So the best way by which you can look into your books is from the library catalog. You really have to eat up the head of the librarian when you start your literature review then. Because in a library, you have your subject catalogs, you even have your keyword options. Oh, what did I say? Keyword. From where do I get the keyword? Remember my previous slide where we have the topic, where we have the specific topic, where we have the narrowed down topic, and from the narrowed down topic, I got the keywords. So those keywords I can search in the library catalog and can find out the books which is pertaining to your research. Always, when you get hold of the books, look at the title of the book very properly. Look at and identify the books. And if you think these books are of interest to you, then take the books. If you think those books titles are appropriate for your research, note them. Note then, none of us are so intelligent enough that you might be reading 50 books and you will remember all the titles. Noting down is very, very important in a literature review. Beware that sometimes the title does not provide enough information to help you to decide if a book is going to be of use, so sometimes, or not sometimes, rather always, you should also examine the contents of the book, whether the contents of the books have some similarity with your narrowed down topics and your specific topics. When you have selected 10 to 15 books, it is enough. Examine the bibliographies of every book. Then you go through the books, give it back to the library, and then again you search. Don't take all the books together. It will be very, very confusing in that way. Books are not the only source. We have the journals also. Again, where do I get the journals? The library is the best place to search your journals. Journals are a very important part of literature review to find out sources, because it gives you the most up-to-date information. And friends, you will have to go through the journals of, relating to your research in the similar manner as you have done for the books. The journals provide you with the most up-to-date information, as I said, even though there is a gap of 2 to 3 years, because if you want to publish your paper in a well-placed journal, 2 to 3 years you have to wait, because peer review takes a long time, because so that is why you have to be very particular about the information which you are getting. You should always select as many journals as possible, and then when you read the journals, try to read the about section of the journal. This about section of the journal will tell you whether that particular journal has got academic originality or not, which is very important in today's age. Internet, how can we forget that? We are living, today we are having this webinar on the virtual platform. So when we're doing a literature review now, we cannot just ignore the internet. So now in almost every academic discipline and professional fields, the internet has become a very important tool for finding published literature. Through an internet search, you can easily find out the published materials in books, the published materials in journals and other sources. And all this happens with immense speed by sitting at home. It is very, very easy to get connected in the internet. In internet, search is usually carried on with search engines. So the most common one is Google and Yahoo. And it is very important here also, the use of keywords. Remember, I told you about the keywords where I got the topic, the specific topic, the narrow topic, and the keywords. Yes, that is the actual right way to start your literature review with. Not only that, nowadays we have many sources from where we can get, from the internet where we can get our sources. For example, Google Scholar is there where we search for literature relevant work. We even have Justor. Justor is a digital library for academic journals, for academic books, for even with your primary sources, the databases. You have Abesco, which is a leading in research database. You even have a Project Muse, and Project Muse is online and it is very good for humanities and social sciences. For my friends today present virtually from medical background, you have Medline, where you have many researchers based on in your field. You have EconLit as well, where full databases about economics is available. You also have InSpec. InSpec is mostly it's a leading database for physics, for engineering. I'm told that many students are there from engineering colleges as well. My friends, you can look into InSpec for your literature review. You know, whatever you do, whatever e-journals or e-books you get it, reading the abstract to find out whether that piece of paper is relevant to your question or not is very, very important. Identify the most important publications in your topic. If the same authors, same books, or same articles are reappearing again and again in the internet, please do read them. That means they are cited many times. Cited many times, that means that help has been taken by many researchers. That means it is an accepted piece of knowledge. Please go through them. And again, look through the abstract section of the article to find out whether that is relevant or not. So we know the types of literature review. We are really now into writing a literature review. We have planned the literature review. We are researching now from where to get the books, from where to get the journals, from where to get the other sources. Now, we have to evaluate and select the sources. It is not that every source will be required by you or is important to you. You have to read the abstract and really find out whether that source is important or not. And you probably won't be able to read everything, whatever is written. So you will have to judge from the abstract. Remember, I am analytical, I am critical. That's why I am a researcher. So my analytical mind will now work to find out whether this source is really needed for my research or not. So whenever we see a source or whenever we read an article, what actually you should ask yourself to find out whether that particular document is important or not. What question, what problem the author is addressing? Is that problem almost same or is somewhat same to the research I am doing? What are the key concepts? What are the key theories, models, what methods he has taken? Well, that method will somehow help me, or I'd like to know about the methods. What are the results and conclusions of the study? Whether the document, the research article I'm reading will add or challenge my established knowledge, whether it will contribute to the topic I'm working with, what are the strengths and weaknesses of their research. If you're able to analyze and answer, question yourself, your mind, your researcher's mind will tell you that what type of sources you have selected. It is very important. It is very, very important to take notes and cite your resources. There's a small trick here, that whenever we try to take notes, two words we have to remember very well. We have to read strategically, we have to read critically. See, the research cat is so involved in his reading. So really we have to do that strategically and critically. Now, what happens, when you are reading, as soon as you're reading a source, start writing also. Writing is very, very important. Everything cannot be done through the fingertips. Writing is very important, because take notes so that in the later part of literature review, you can incorporate them into the text of your literature review. And it is nothing wrong if you write more. Now, it is very important to track your sources very well, because track your sources means what? Citations. Citations will be taken up in an elaborate manner on the last day of this program. But here I have to mention that whenever you are doing your literature review, you cannot avoid citation. Whenever you take up something, please write the source. Otherwise, at the end of your research, you will be in the middle of Pacific Ocean to find out the source. And this writing down the citations is very important, because you have to avoid plagiarism as well. So it can be helpful to make a annotated bibliography. That means making a summary of whatever sources you're going through. Nowadays, we have many free citation generators also. So you can use them through the internet, so that automatically your citation is generated in whichever citation style you take, whether it is an APA citation or it is a MLA citation. Main point, as I have said, read strategically, read critically. Strategically, when I am reading through the abstract, highlight them if I find something is there which goes along with my research. If the point is coming again and again, take a sheet, write it down. And you should know how to store whatever you have written, whether electronically or in physical paper. At the same time, read critically. Whenever this question comes of read critically, I think of a well. The deeper you go into the well, the water quality becomes better and better. Same, this literature review is just like a well. Why it is like a well? First, when you get a source, read first. Focus that what you actually want. Dig deeper. Try to find out the strength, the weaknesses, the assumptions, the contradictions which are present in those articles. Dig deeper. As I dig deeper, I try to find out how the author is thinking in the similar lines as my research. What agreements he has, what disagreements he has. Does the author acknowledge or neglect others' work or not? So as I go deeper, I find a clear water. As I go deeper into my research study, my literature review becomes clearer, crystal clear. That is what is required. So always your bulb of that researcher's mind should be on when you write a literature review. How to cite the sources? We all know in an academic writing, citing sources is very important. I will not go deeply into citing sources. As I said, it will be covered on the 5th day. But in-text citation, the full references, the citing styles should be taken up, and then only literature review can be done. So literature review and citation should go hand in hand. So here we have to read critically, we have to read write critically. Many times when we are brainstorming with our colleagues or with our students, you find when you're doing a literature review, it is not always you should think negatively. It is not always, literature review does not mean that you always find a fault in everything you read or write. No, it is about analyzing. You analyze it properly. Whatever you're receiving is proper or not, whether it is going with your context or not, whether the piece of study which you are referring will help you to draw a logical conclusion or not. So you have to think critically, take up the positive points as well as the negative points. No, it is not the negative points. Those negative points becomes the gaps in research, which you as a researcher will be filling it up. Now we have planned, we have researched. Now the time comes of organizing your sources. Remember, my friends, we are writing a literature review. Writing a literature review has got 4 steps: plan, research, organize, and write. We have planned it. We have researched it. From where did we get it? From books, journals, internets, and so on. And now we have to organize it. Generally, you find in a literature review, you quote a source. My advice to all of you there is, please don't quote anything and everything. If you want to quote a source, copy a short piece of a text word and put it under quotation marks. You actually have to paraphrase the source. A paraphrase the source means what? You have to put the ideas into your own words. At the same time, recognize the author. Why? The idea is not yours. You have just played around with the words. It is very important to paraphrase the words in a proper manner. You should not be too close with the original wordings. Whether you quote, whether you paraphrase, I'm saying again, you should recognize the author. You should write the name of the author. You should cite the author. This will help to avoid plagiarism. Sometimes we find that actually we are lost, making a reference list because it goes on and on. Now we have got many automatic citation generators as well. Like if your library where you're going through, you have RefWorks Citation Manager or you have Zotero Citation Manager, they can help you. Once you put in and tell the style of the citation, automatically your citation is generated. So you can take care of that also. Here, the literature review becomes much more faster. So, as I said, we'll be organizing it. We have planned it, we have researched it, got everything. I know how to cite it. I know how to paraphrase it. Now, how do I put it one after the other? There is a fashion of putting this literature review, 5 ways by which you can put your literature review. Either it is chronological, or it is according to the trend, or it is thematic, or it is methodological, or it is theoretical. Let us find out in short, one by one. Chronological, the name indicates when we organize the sources in order they are published. However, if we choose this strategy, we all should be very, very careful by just simply listing and summarizing the sources. No, listing and summarizing the sources is not the work of a researcher. Think analytically, think logically how to put them. Try to analyze the patterns, the turning points, the key debates which have shaped the research in your field. Give your interpretation, and why certain things have occurred. For example, I am doing a research on emergence of East India Company in India after the fall of the Mughals. So it is very, very clear that previous researchers I need to study for my literature review. It has a series of events that how the Mughals fell and the East India Company rose. So those series of events can be placed one after the other, but you need to add your own analysis as well. Number 2 is trends. Organize your sources, how the present changes in the topic over time. Now, I changed my research topic. My research topic is now coffee plantation in South India. So now I will have to understand right from the colonial period to the present, what were the different trends, why the coffee plantation methods has changed, the trading activities of coffee has changed. So this is what I do in a literature review when I follow the trends. Thematic, very easy. When I follow certain theme or my literature review generally evolves around an issue. Now I take an example. For example, my research topic is inequalities in migrant health outcomes. So what are my different themes? What are the keywords coming out of this research? Healthcare policy. Keywords may be language barriers. Maybe some of the migrants have language problem, so they cannot go for healthcare policies. Cultural attitudes, sometimes maybe legal status, it can be economic access, and so on. So whenever you take an issue and try to move around an issue in your literature review, it becomes thematic. What is methodological? When you organize your sources of your research, that how your research was conducted, you give focus on the methods utilized by the researcher. So you can divide your research or literature review into sociological, historical, cultural sources. Let us study, maybe my research is on American presidential politics, and you're researching it on the internet. So we can do what? We can search the cultural differences between the portrayal of the American presidents in American, British, and French websites. In different websites, you will find the approach, the methodology is been different. What is theoretical? A literature review is often a foundation for a theoretical framework. As I said, from a literature review, you can develop your conceptual framework, your theory. So whenever you do a literature review with a view of developing a theoretical framework, you say it's a theoretical type of literature review. You can use this literature review to discuss various theories, models, concepts, and so on. So these are the main ways by which we can organize our literature review. So we have planned our literature review, we have researched our literature review, and we also have got some idea about how to organize our literature review. How to organize? According to time, according to trend, according to theme, according to method, or according to the theory which you intend to develop. A literature review, you should always remember, includes just a moment. Yeah, includes two main things. It includes history as well as the current situation. Now, generally, we have a trend of looking into the literatures which are being published recently, maybe 5 years old. But it is very important to understand that there are some studies which will require literature reviews right from historical times to the contemporary materials. Some disciplines may require information as current as possible. As again, I've said, my friends from medical background, maybe you are doing a research on medical science. You are doing a research on the treatment of a medical problem. And we all know the treatments of medical problems, they keep on changing very fast. So even information about 2 years old can be treated as obsolete. So here you have to be really on your toes to find out the current researches which are having. Again, I'm doing a literature review on humanities. I'm doing a literature review in the subject of history or a social science, where the survey of the history of literature may be what is needed. The history is also required, as well as the present is also required, because I need to understand the changes. So what type of literature review you will take, of whether you will give more emphasis to the obsolete literature reviews or more emphasis to the current one, definitely will depend upon your subject. I'm not able to change my slide. I'm sorry for the technical hinge. I'm not able to change my slide. The technical team, can you help me in that? I request the technical team to help me. The technical. I request the technical team to help me.
You need to scroll it, ma'am.
I'm scrolling it down, madam, but it's not happening.
It's happening, it's moving.
Yeah, it's moving.
Well, we
Thank
can
you,
see
thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thanks a lot. So I'm sorry for the technical hinge. Now we are conducting a literature review. We have planned it, we have researched it, we have even organized it. At least we wanted to organize it in different ways. Now let us write it. Now, why I always say that my literature review should go on in a very, very organized manner, because I don't want to become like this cat by doing everything. He starts hating your research. As I said, you should fall in love with your research, and then only your research becomes more vibrant in nature. So then we have to write our literature review. While writing a literature review also, there is a technical way of writing it. Every literature review should have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. You have to keep that in mind. Maybe later on, when you finalize your thesis, you can remove the subheadings of introduction, body, and conclusion so that you can get a proper flow of your literature review. But when you're writing it in rough, please do maintain these 3 steps. I am sure the working of literature review will become easy and as interesting as ever. Let us find out. So what to include in introduction? In introduction, definitely you are defining the topic, or you're writing about the issue or the area where you are researching. You have to point out the major trends, the major theories which you are trying to establish, and so on. Very important in introduction. You should write the purpose of writing the literature review. What actually you want to find out from literature review. What studies you write to find out in literature review. Same thing, we come to the body of the literature review. Body of the literature review is very important. Here you write down your historical background, the methodologies, the previous studies of the topic, the mainstream and the alternative viewpoints which you have developed from your topic, the questions which were asked, the conclusions. Remember, my friends, in the body, don't forget to arrange the literature review, whether it is chronological, trend, whatever it may be. Please do arrange it in a form which is prescribed. Conclusion of a literature review, you summarize what you have got it from the literature review. When you summarize the literature review, you find out one very important aspect of research has come out, and that is gap. What do you want to study and what has not been studied by the different researchers in the same field. This gap will make your study, will make your research a very, very important one. You have to fill up these gaps as a researcher, and here you establish your thought in your research, in your literature review. In a literature review, it is very, very essential to be very clear and very, very focused. I always feel that literature review actually involves a paradox. Why? On one hand, you cannot effectively undertake a literature review search without any idea of a problem. What do I search? I should have a problem. You wish to investigate. On the other hand, literature review can play a very important role in shaping your research problem, because the process of reviewing the literature will help you to understand the subject better, and thus help you to conceptualize your research problem clearly, precisely, so that you can bring out your research in a very, very relevant way. So we can say, if you want to bring focus in your literature review, you have to give due importance to the subject areas which have been examined by others. You have to find out what are the different aspects of the same topic has been studied by others. Don't forget the gaps. We have to find out the gaps and definitely the suggestions. You see in the screen, people, what are these people doing? There's everywhere, there's a gap in the research and you're trying to fill up that gap. From where did you get that gap? From literature review. Who has told you? From your different sources, the books, journals, internet sources and everything. You have read them and found out that what you want to prove in your research was not done ever. So you became an inventor of that knowledge. And who gives you the basis of that invention? It is the literature review. So whenever you're doing it, you should be very original. You should be to find a gap. Always remember, in a research, your research contribution will fill up a gap. For example, a small example. I am maybe Mr. A is studying about the traffic problem in Mumbai. When we go through the literature review, he finds out that there are many researches available about traffic problems in Delhi, in Asansol, in Gwalior. But what about Mumbai? About Mumbai, it is not available. Don't you feel, my friends, that is a gap in research? Traffic congestion is such a huge problem in Mumbai, and that has not been studied. So why don't I take it up as my research? Why can't I take up and fill up this gap? That becomes a research. And who has shown me this gap? It is the literature review. Think about it, my friends. Can we really ignore literature review? No. If you ignore literature review, your research never happens. So we can say a literature review always improves the research methodology. Improves the research methodologies. It tells us about different methodologies. It tells us about different procedures. And moreover, most important in research is that your confidence. You gain a confidence when you study about other researchers because it broadens your own knowledge. Unless and until your knowledge is broadened, you cannot develop a research. So it is very important. By now, I'm sure every one of you has become an expert in literature review. It is very, very important. And the most important function of literature review is to ensure that to read widely. You have to read widely in your subject area. It is very important for you to know what other researchers feel about your research question, what theories they have forwarded and how they have contributed to the research. So reading becomes a very important part of your literature review. Now it is again very, very clear on us that why we should write a literature review. Because we write a literature review to determine what is already written about the topic, what overviews are already there in the topic. What are the major relationships and patterns? What are the major strengths and weaknesses of others so that I can develop mine? What are the gaps so that I can fulfill mine? What are the evidences present? Main thing, remember the stepping stone of research? Yes, it provides a solid background of a stepping stone of research. See the picture depicted in my screen, you become disciplined in nature. The most important aspect of a researcher is disciplined. Unless and until you do this literature review in a disciplined manner, you really cannot develop a proper literature review. So if you don't develop a proper literature review, you don't develop a base for the research. And how can you develop a research if you don't have a base? So literature review definitely helps us to accomplish the past researches, identifying the experts also. If you're really stuck somewhere or research, you have to brainstorm with others. So you can always, if you read somebody's theories or write-ups, you can always contact them if their contact is given so that you can brainstorm on your ideas. You can identify your key questions. You can determine the methodologies which are used in the past studies. So literature review is actually to define and to develop, definitely to identify the gaps, Literature review, I can say it covers the depth and breadth of any research. Then only your research becomes proper. So, friends, let us find out what are the 7 main rules of writing a literature review. Seven main rules for writing a literature review. Number 1, use evidence. Use evidence. Where are my evidences? Remember citations I have told you? Whenever you get an article or a book, as you write down the thoughts, please do cite it. Your citation will give you the evidence. These citations will make your points valid. Always be selective. Don't try to read anything and everything is available. Apply your analytical mind of a researcher and be selective in finding out the sources. Use quotes sparingly. As I said, smaller quotes. Do not use them extensively at all. Very first, when I started my presentation, I spoke about summarizing. Not only summarizing, I spoke about synthesizing your materials. Always keep in your own voice, as if the researcher is speaking. You know, like this, you directly go into the heart of the readers. Be very cautious with paraphrasing. Don't change the meaning. Sometimes what happens as a researcher, you have your own research also, prior researches. If you have that, if the topic is almost similar, try to include some of your researches as well, but be very, very objective. Your literature review should not be only your research and you ignore the others. That also cannot happen. Some of the common errors which we make in literature review, sometimes we use very long sentences. Don't use that. Keep sentences different, varied length of sentences. Some are small, some are longer ones. You have to remember readers' interest and comprehension is very important here. Single paragraph, as I said, is very, very abstract. Introduction, body, conclusion. Maybe remove the subheadings, but always it should be divided into paragraphs. This will help you to hold the reader's attention. Do not use emotional words. What you felt is not enough. What is the evidence that is enough? Always research is evidence. Unless and until you have an evidence, that has got no place in research. Sometimes the sources do not relate with the research problem. So you should be very careful while choosing the sources, and abruptly, you have to think critically, always analyze and then write. Uncritically, you just cannot write findings that will not be valid anymore. So now we know what is not a literature review. If you remember, we have already done what was not a literature review. Just adding the sources chronologically, one after the other. Is it literature review? No, we have to critically evaluate them. Just writing the quotations of some people or just paraphrasing, is it a literature review? No. Where is the application of your mind? So a good literature review should be such where you have to critically evaluate the quality of the paper as well as the finding of the research. There are several writing styles of a literature review. Like if it's an academic, you have to be very impersonal, very formal. You should not use words is not, isn't, and so on. You have to be very non-discriminatory, non-sexist. You have to be coherent. The flow should be proper. Citing. Citing is very, very important in a literature review. So friends, are you thinking about the literature review now? Yes, we are thinking of the literature review. Whenever we start thinking the literature review, take the overview of the subject, the issue, the theory. What are you studying about literature review? Division of work into themes. How do you want to divide your literature review? Explain each author's work, how it is similar to you or how it is dissimilar to you, and always write a conclusion. Literature review should be it's nothing but the other name, the synonym of literature review can be critical evaluation. So whenever you're critically evaluating the literature review, it should be very, very provenance in nature. That means you should always know the author's credentials and what are the arguments that you're taking the evidences. You should always give credit to the techniques which are used by the author. You should be very, very be objective in your nature. Sometimes you should be very, very persuasiveness. And most important, you should always give value to the other researchers, how they've helped you in developing your literature review. So the checklist, after you make a literature review, what actually you have to see, what have you done, whether you have outlined the purpose and scope of the literature review properly or not, whether you have identified the most appropriate, the most credible literature or not. Anything and everything is not acceptable. Whether you have cited in your full reference or in bibliography, whether you have given the citations properly or not, whether you have identified the gap or not. If you do not identify the gap, there is no point of a research if it becomes repetitive in nature. You have to find out something innovative in your nature. So that innovativeness will come from your literature review. Whether you have discussed various viewpoints where every author has done or not, whether you have written the literature review by keeping in your mind the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Last but not the least, whether you have really checked the punctuation and the spelling. You know, big researchers, they almost sometimes forget the very simple ones. So we should not do that. Putting it all together. So how did we do our literature review? We have found out the topic, the specific topic, the narrow topic, from where I got the keywords. From the keywords, I got into the content. I looked into the books, the journals, the internet sources. I started reading them. As I was reading them, I was noting down as well. And I was citing also. And then I have organized it. My friends, if we follow it in a proper organized manner like this, I am sure you will come out with an extremely extensive literature review, which will help to improve the value of your research. So what did we learn in literature review here? What is literature review? What is the aim of literature review? What is the purpose of literature review? How to create a literature review? What are the different types of literature review, the 4 important types? How do we conduct the literature review? What are the different parts of a literature review? How to bring clarity and focus? And after all, why to write a literature review? What are the rules of writing a literature review? What are the common errors of literature review? And what are the different writing styles? Literature review, we must be realizing, has become a very, very important part. Literature review has given us the answer of why to do the research. Because if everything you want to research is already been done by others, there is no point of doing a literature review at all. So you should know why to do a literature review. So literature review has answered all your queries. It has identified the gaps. It has told you why you should take up a particular research. So I put it in the research terms. I will not use the word why. I will put rationale of study. So literature review has showed me the pathway of writing, of doing a research. It has told me why you should carry on that research. So that why is rationale of study. So I'm jumping now from literature review to rationale of study. But where do I write rationale of study in my thesis? Please do include it in your problem of study or the background of the study or even the introduction as your subject tells you. But literature review tells me about 2 most important things: identifying the gaps and telling me why you should research in this point only, in this topic only, why not in others. That is, as I said in research terms, the rationale of study. So rationale of study, in simple words, it is what? It is a reason behind a decision of doing a research. The rationale of our research tells us the reason for conducting a study, simple words. The rationale should also answer the need, that why do you want to study if your research is just another book to be kept in the library and your cupboard? It is not a research. It should be, the research should be one which should be helpful to the others, either to the government or to the society. So this rationale of study will tell you the need of your study. It is very important part of your research because it justifies the significance of your study. It tells us the novelty, something new you're finding out in your research, and that novelty is been found out. So I can say, if I want to explain it to others in a very simple terms, that literature, the rationale of study is nothing but justification of the study. Why of my research is answered, why I should study about certain things. So whenever you're writing a rationale of study, please don't miss out the following points. You have to write down the background of your research. You write down what is missing in others' research. How do I get what is missing in others' research? Remember literature review? I found out the gaps. See the person in my screen. He's finding out the gap. He knows the gap. And that is why he should study the SATE project. What are the open questions in it? And again, the gaps, as you realize, your rationale becomes more and more important. I can say the rationale of study is something very, very logical. It is not a description, it is a logic. These are the reasons why I am studying a literature review. It does not say that what you have done, but it will try to explain why you have done it, why you have taken up this particular research. So whenever you're writing a rationale of study in either your problem or in your introduction, please try to find out these answers, that how you can fill up the gaps and so on, how it will be helpful to others and so on, so that your rationale of studies becomes much more solid in nature. So remember one thing, rationale of study actually tells you to identify the problems as well as the needs in a proper manner. Whenever you're writing a rationale of study, please try to question these points and try to find out an answer, that whether your study is important or not. If it is important, for whom it is important. Whether your study has taken the reference of some creditable sources or not. Remember citation. Whether your study is important for which category of people, whether your study will bring benefit to any research study or not, whether it has got any value or not, whether it has got any relevance or not, whether it is satisfying or not, and most important, whether your study has got some implications or not. So always, whenever you try to write down the rationale of study, find out the research gap from literature review. Once you find out the research gap from literature review, you try to find out that how your study will be helpful for policy making, how your study will be helpful to the society. So the answer will automatically come in. We found one thing. Literature review, finding out the rationale of study is it goes on and on and on. Most of the research scholars and we researchers are often bored with doing literature review. So what are the ways? I just end my talk today by just sharing a productivity rule. And there are many colleagues of mine here from management, they must be applying it already, but we have to apply it to any research which we do. So I always, my personal feeling, I give a personal touch to my talk now, where I try to do a Pomodoro technique. Now, what is that Pomodoro technique? A Pomodoro technique is that you set up 4 Pomodoros, 4 time slots. Each time slot may be of 25 minutes. So when each time slot is 25 minutes, that makes it 100 minutes. After each Pomodoro, that is after every 25 minutes, you take a gap of 5 minutes, roam around, see your phone, see your WhatsApp and so on. For 5 minutes, you take a gap. So you have 4 Pomodoros, 25 minutes each, which makes it 100 minutes, and 5 minutes of rest time after every Pomodoro. 5 minutes 4 times together makes it 20 minutes. So total, I have 120 minutes. That is of 2 hours. In this 2 hours, I call it 2 golden hours. In this 2 hours, I am not allowed to do certain things. What? No editing, no formatting, no surfing, no emailing to friends, no referencing, and no photocopying. Even a cat, the research cat is fine with that. So what do? We only find out a source and we read for our literature review. We only try to find out the gap of our literature review. We only try to find out the why of our literature review. My friends, if we really follow this Pomodoro technique, not only literature review, but my whole research becomes very, very easy and interesting. So good luck for our literature review and rationale of study. I am grateful again to Nagindas Kanwala College. Thank you.
Thank you, Moushumi ma'am, for this lucid presentation. We will now open the floor to any interactions or queries that the participants may have. You may put your questions in the chat box. I will be coordinating and selecting the questions and reading it out to Moushumi ma'am so that she will be able to answer. There have been, while you were presenting, some comments and some questions. I have picked up some. Some of them have been already addressed by Moushumi ma'am during her presentation, so I have not picked up those. Though we would love to answer all your doubts, it is practically impossible to do so. So we will be taking questions from the Zoom only. And now I request the technical team to share the feedback form in another 5-10 minutes, so that in the chat box, so that, and also other platforms where it is being shared. Participants, please fill up the feedback form before you leave the webinar. Moushumi ma'am, there is a question from Mr. Arvind Nagrik. He says, does this analogy that you have presented be used for researchers in any field, like
Yes.
engineering, medical science, and management, etc.?
Yes, it can be done in any field. Only I said the way of you are selecting the sources differs from subject to subject, but the way you're doing a literature review is the same. You have to organize them. You have to understand the types of it, what are the themes you're taking chronologically, whether you're doing. And literature review is all about analysis. In any subject you take, you have to analyze your sources. Otherwise, it cannot be a productive literature review.
Yeah, one more question, which is very similar, slightly related like this, is from Ashisha Thapa. She says, if a research subject is new and if no literature is found on the topic, this question, I think many of us research guides face it. There is no such thing that like no literature review, no literature you will find. Anyway, I leave it to the expert to answer this. Are found on the same heading, how do they go about the literature review?
You can find out literature review of some associated topics. Like when I was doing my research, I was the first person to do it under medical geography. So I did not find any literature review, but I always found out from other disciplines that in my medical research, my medical geography was on the malaria. So on malaria in medical science, there were lots of researches done. So I found out from the associated disciplines. In associated disciplines, definitely literature will be available. That is, narrowing down, and the keywords are so very important.
Yes. Now there is a very big question coming from Chandrasekhar Jha from Jharkhand. He says, what is the basic ethics of research?
Basic ethics of originality, the citations. As I've said in my presentation again and again, whenever you're reading it, cite them. That is the authenticity of a research. And add your own ideas as well. So authenticity will come in automatically.
Yes. One question from Sindhu Menon. She says, is it required to mention our disagreements with each and every literature that we have reviewed?
Not
if yes, then should the disagreements be mentioned in the body or conclusion?
No, in the body, last part of the body also it can be mentioned, the disagreements, because unless and until you have a disagreement, you cannot have a gap. Unless and until you have a disagreement, if you agree with all the previous researchers, there is no point of you doing a research. Once you disagree, want to find out a different viewpoint to your research, then only that is worthwhile. So it's not worth your time, if everything has been established, you're studying it again. So definitely you have to do that, because as I said, in a literature review is just not adding what A, B, C, D said chronologically or according to the theme. Do add up your own ideas as well. So that can be done at the end of a body or maybe in the conclusion.
Yeah, there is one from Dr. K. Punkodi. He says, for new topics in science, can I publish negative results? There is no result and literature.
No. As I said, no, now it can be some associated, some specific, which goes somewhat, because if you have nothing there, it becomes an invention. It's totally an experimentation and invention. So you need to find out some associated keywords and do a literature review. That is required. Then only you can prove that you don't have a literature review. Otherwise, when you really go for your defending your research, they will not agree to that.
Yes. There is one question from Dr. Neha Mathur. She says, is there any difference between writing a chapter in a thesis and writing a literature review for PhD coursework, which is mandatory?
No, right. When I was mentioning, I said, although it is a part of outside the webinar topic, but I said that for every paper, literature review is necessary. But that depends upon your judgment. Maybe a 10 pages paper will require 5 to 6 reviews, because always when you do a research, you need to know what did the others think about the research, what is their thoughts. Then only you can fulfill your objectives. So, in a thesis, definitely it should be done in a much more elaborate way, because you're doing a judgment there. So to prove your judgment, there cannot be any numbers. You just have to prove it. Maybe for science, you require less number of reviews, but for humanities or for commerce, you require more number of reviews.
I think that brings us to the end of the question and answer session. Many of them have complimented you, ma'am, on the excellent session. I would also like to say that in this. Now, we will end the session. And before we end, I request again, everyone, please fill up the feedback forms that has been posted in the chat boxes. Please make sure that you fill it up before you leave the webinar. I would like to thank the management of our college. They have always encouraged us to explore new areas and expand our horizons. I am grateful to our principal, Dr. Mrs. Nancy Jose, who always creates an atmosphere conducive to new ideas and expressions, which makes us feel like venturing into greenfield projects with the confidence of a solid backing of our leader. I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Varsha Ainapure for dreaming this big and making it possible for so many participants to benefit from this webinar. Without the support of a back-end team, it is not possible to execute such a big event through remote methods. My heartfelt thanks to our student volunteers, Jash, Jimit, Bhumik, and Path for their relentless work. We would often ask them to do the work late at night, and immediately in 5 minutes, they would come up with the results. When we started, I would like to note another thing here. When we started registrations for this webinar, we were not sure how many would enroll for it. But the response on one day, on the first day, showed an overwhelming response, and registration numbers started moving north very fast. We realized, that is when we realized that it will not be possible to give quality streaming of the proceedings without professional help. That was when we SOS'd EPS, Electronic Payment Systems. They were ready to help, and this webinar became possible because of their technical know-how. I would like to thank the EPS team for their timely support. I'm thankful to Mr. Krishna Kumar, KK as he is popularly called, who was very helpful in understanding our SOS call, Radha, who was always there when I contacted her, and her team for the excellent support rendered by them. We will now meet again tomorrow for the second day of the webinar. Thank you, everyone.